Picture a man standing in front of his bathroom cabinet. It is 9 p.m. He has a slight headache, a 4 out of 10. The kind of ache that will be gone by morning, whether he does anything about it or not. He opens the cabinet anyway. Inside, an arsenal. Advil for the inflammation. Tylenol for the pain. A cough syrup he bought during a cold in 2019. He takes 2 tablets, washes them down, and goes to bed feeling vaguely heroic, as though he has just survived something. Now rewind. Not 100 years, not 1,000. Rewind to the long, cold middle of human history, the Pleistocene, the Ice Age, the 99% of our story that happened before anyone thought to build a hospital. There is no cabinet. There is no tablet. There is a man with the same headache, sitting in the mouth of a cave, watching his breath turn to fog. For almost the entire run of our species, medicine was a specific plant that worked beautifully or killed you instantly, depending on which part you ate and how much you trusted the last guy who tried it. So here is the question. How did we survive the Ice Age without a single Band-Aid? Your immune system, the one you are quietly proud of, is probably underemployed. There is an idea called the Hygiene Hypothesis, and the short version is this: a body that never meets a threat never learns to fight one. Our ancestors lived in the dirt. They drank from rivers that animals also drank from. They ate roots they pulled out of the ground and wiped on their leg, which was, frankly, the wash cycle. Their food came with a side of soil and a generous helping of bacteria. This sounds like a nightmare. It was, in one sense, a gift. Their gut microbiome, the colony of organisms living inside them, was a lush rainforest. Thousands of species, all arguing, all balancing each other out, all keeping the body's defenses sharp. Ours, by comparison, is a manicured suburban lawn. Tidy, green. 2 species of grass and absolutely nothing interesting going on. Their bodies were a 24-hour battleground, and the home team almost never lost. Not because they were lucky, because they had been training their whole lives. They were rugged by necessity, which is the only kind of rugged that actually counts. Now, ruggedness only carries you so far. At some point you eat the wrong berry, or you get a wound that won't close, and the rainforest in your gut shrugs and says, "This one's above my pay grade." This is where it gets clever. There is a field of study called ethnobotany, the science of how human cultures use plants, and it reveals something humbling. Our ancestors were not flailing in the dark. They were running the longest, most patient experiment in history, and they were taking notes. A lot of those notes came from watching animals. A sick animal does not have a doctor either, and yet a sick animal often knows exactly which strange plant to chew. Early humans watched. When the deer ate a certain bark, they remembered. When the bear dug up a certain root, they filed it away. Trial, error, and a great deal of borrowed wisdom from creatures who couldn't talk but somehow still knew things. And the results were not primitive. They were precise. Willow bark, for instance. Chew on it, and the headache fades. We now know why it contains salicin, the compound we eventually refined into aspirin. Our ancestors had aspirin. It just came attached to a tree. Honey was the ancient neosporin. It is naturally antibacterial, it draws moisture out of a wound, and it sits there quietly killing things that would otherwise kill you. Smear it on a cut, and you have, by accident, performed real medicine. And then there is clay. Some groups deliberately aided a habit called geophagy, to settle a churning stomach. The clay binds to toxins and carries them out. It is, essentially, the prehistoric version of the chalky pink stuff in your cabinet, except it came out of a riverbank and cost nothing. A 24-hour pharmacy. This was not. It was more of a 24-hour climb up a mountain and hope this moss stops the bleeding system. And honestly, it worked better than you'd think. Here is the part that tends to surprise people. So brace yourself. They did surgery on the skull on purpose. It is called trepanation drilling, or scraping a hole into a living person's head, usually to relieve pressure from a swelling brain or a bad fracture. It sounds like a horror story. It sounds like the last thing a person would survive. And yet, we have found ancient skulls with these holes. And around the edges of those holes, the bone has grown back, healed, smoothed over, which means the patient did not die on the table, or rather, the rock. They lived. They woke up, they walked around, and their skull spent years quietly knitting itself shut. Some skulls show 2 or 3 of these holes healed at different times, which means somebody came back for seconds. That is either trust or desperation, and at that point, they are the same thing. By around the 4th century BCE, bone setting was a known craft, and setting a broken leg was not a small thing. Out there, a broken leg that healed crooked was a death sentence on a delay because the slowest member of the group is the one the leopard picks. The ability to set a bone straight was, very literally, the difference between a life and a snack. But none of this, not the willow bark, not the honey, not the hole in the skull, is the real answer. The real answer is quieter, and it is the heart of the whole story. There is a quote, often attributed to the anthropologist Margaret Mead. She was supposedly asked what she considered the first sign of civilization. People expected her to say a tool, or a pot, or a weapon. She said, "A healed femur. The femur is the big bone in your thigh, and it takes weeks to mend. In the wild, an animal with a broken femur dies. It cannot run, it cannot hunt, it cannot reach water. It becomes lunch." So a healed femur means something extraordinary happened. It means that when one person went down, someone else stayed. Someone carried them to safety. Someone brought them food day after day, for weeks, while that bone slowly fused, getting nothing in return but a slower, hungrier season for themselves. That is the first medicine. Not a plant, not a blade. A decision made by someone else to not leave you behind. The tribe was the cure. Social cohesion was the technology that beat death more often than anything you could chew or swallow. So, were they tougher than us? Yes. Plainly, embarrassingly, yes. We have traded natural ruggedness for chemical safety. And on balance, it was a fantastic trade. We live longer, we hurt less, and most of us will never need a stranger to scrape a hole in our skull with a sharp rock. But it is worth remembering, the next time you take 2 tablets for a 4 out of 10 headache, that you are the direct descendant of the toughest people who have ever lived. People who set their own bones, healed their own skulls, and carried each other across the Ice Age on nothing but stubbornness and each other. We owe them everything. I am still extremely glad that when I go to the dentist, somebody offers me the anesthetic first.